Good morning. Welcome to Florianópolis. Welcome to UFSC. Welcome to our Smart Solar building for this 3 week on community-based sustainable energy. Thank you very much for attending. Many of you came from very far away, traveled a lot to be here with us. I hope we make this work this week something very special in your careers. This is an initiative mostly of Professor Elena Gaura from Coventry. We have a couple of mentors. I'll introduce them in a couple of minutes. Both universities under the support of the international sponsorship agencies put together this workshop as an initial point for a long-term networking, research networking between the countries. So let me thank our sponsors. This has been sponsored in Brazil mostly by FAPESC, that is the state, it's not the federal, it's not for the whole country, it's for this state, a research agency, by British Council through the Newton Fund and the program called Researchers Links. You are now linked to this program, and we also have support from the City Convention Bureau. And we are here with a very tough mission. The status quo for sustainable energy shall not be the same by Friday. So you have a huge mission to improve this, to interact, to communicate, and by Friday we should have something very interesting to tell the community. But remember, we're going to do it together. So it's a binational cooperation. Part of this is a matching between peers from both countries. Try to identify interesting points of research that are within our interests so we can cooperate and perhaps really advance the state of the art in this subject. And I'd like to remind you that this is not just about a workshop. This is the beginning of something. If this workshop achieves the goals, then we expect to have matched peers to a level, to a degree of compromise in which people will keep on cooperating, collaborating for the future. We have from the agencies a clear signal that new calls will come and research calls will come for people as long as we demonstrate that we have enough capability to really help to solve these problems on the world. And we have put together a board of mentors that are here to help you. So it's your workshop, it's your time to find your peers, to interact with your peers, but we are very glad to be here to help you. So I already mentioned Professor Elena Gaura, which has organized the workshop with me. Everybody calls me Guto. I was born with a nickname, and later on I got a real name, so sorry for these for British that are not used, but if you call me Antonio Augusto, many of my students won't say, well, who's that guy? Never heard of. James also came from Coventry together with John, and we have 2 Brazilians, Ricardo Rüther, that is the one we have to thank a lot for being here. He's the one who faced all the bureaucracy in the last 3-4 years to put this building up. I mean, the one that has to explain the government and the bureaucrats why we want these and not that. So thank you very much for having achieved these in a time. You all know Brazil is facing lots of difficulties. And André is not here yet. We have a social biologist, a geneticist doing research in the social impacts of renewable energies that will be with us on some days along the week. So perhaps before discussing the program, you would like to say something?
Well, I'm really delighted to have you all here, and the message from me only enforces what Antonio has already said. This is your workshop. I knew he's going to go. I can't get used to nicknames, so I'm going to call Guto forever and after Antonio. We are really a very special community here. It is, I believe, one of the main reasons, apart from Ricardo's and Antonio's prestige in the research community in Brazil and internationally, one of the main reasons we got this grant from the British Council and FACEPS is because we convinced them that we are bringing together 3 communities from 2 countries. And I hope that you are going to find your peers, whether you are in the energy sector, an energy scientist of whatever sort, a computer scientist of whatever sort, working in IoT and wireless sensor networks, or a social scientist. I do feel that we have good representation of all those domains, and the value here is bringing you guys together, getting you talking, and looking for the greater good and the bigger aim. However, the workshop will only be as good as you make it be. I'm still a little bit anxious about the interactive sessions. I hope you are going to engage well. I hope we are going to give you enough food for thought to promote and provoke that interaction. I hope you'll feel challenged, because if you are not, you'll be bored. That would be very bad to come all the way and not feel that you are taking an interest with you. You need to remember that the gains in this week have to be propagated, maintained, and supported on a long-term basis. And I do feel that you all have made a commitment to that already by undertaking such long travel and by giving a week of your working life to be here with us. Hopefully by Friday we will have the cradle for the interaction, which is going to be maybe initially in a wiki type environment. We've got some technical implementation guys are still working on both sides to set it all up nicely, and I do hope that that is going to remain our first and foremost media for collaboration in the next 6 months, 12 months. I have no doubt, however, that you'll all be pleased to let Antonio and I and the other mentors know in a few months' time when you have the first collaborative grant submission. And we will all be delighted to be your reviewers for your first competitive funding submissions together. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Elena. So let's do a quick scan of the program so you get familiarized with what we planned for you this week. We have in green here the keynote speakers. Each mentor is going to hold a keynote on its major research interests along the week. Professor Ricardo will begin after us, right after us. Then we have, for these 2 initial days, posters presentation along with the coffee break. So you saw already we set up the stands on the room in front of these so you can have coffee and discuss your posters and get to know each other's work and research while you have some coffee. Then we have the sessions for you to present each other. All these ICR development sessions are reserved for you to tell your peers what you've been doing and what are your perspectives to do research in this area. Tonight we're gonna move to a small old Portuguese village called Santo Antônio. It's a nice place to see the sunset. I hope it's not going to rain at that time. And then we're gonna have dinner. Well, there's one thing I guess me and Elena have to make it clear from the beginning. It's the first time Brazil and England cooperate in this kind of workshop, and part of the budget was simply forgotten. They simply forgot to list the expenses for the British hotel and local expenses. So we have to squeeze the budget to make everything fit within the budget we had originally. Elena reserved part of the British budget. I saved part of the Brazilian budget. That's why you were being allocated in double rooms. I'm sorry, otherwise half of you would be out of the workshop. And we are also limited on dinner. We only have 2 dinners on our expenses. You have to care for yourself on the other nights. Yeah, okay. Yeah, we have one final reserve, monetary reserve for 1 additional dinner. And you have to pay for your own wine and beer and things like this. So we're gonna take the shuttle directly to Santo Antônio. You can stroll around. It's an old village. You can visit. I said we have to switch it off. Mateus asked them just to switch the general switch because this one is broken, the other one is working, but this is still trying to operate. It's not responding to the remote, no, really. And then the bus will drive you to the hotel this night. Tomorrow morning, well, every morning you're going to depart the hotel at the same time. We have another keynote, 10-hour sessions, a chance to peer with mentors, find someone you identify yourself with and try to discuss your research interests. We're going to have lunch here. We reduced the time to 1 hour only because we're not going back to the hotel. We hired a service. You're going to have lunch here so we can finish earlier and you can enjoy Florianópolis, go to the beach or something like that, right? On Wednesday, Andrea is the specialist on social sciences, so we schedule a session for school kids to come and visit the facility here. They will build some photovoltaics, play with some stuff here, and we will, not to scare them, not to have all of you paying attention on what a couple of kids are doing. We're going to record that on tape, and I'm sorry. And in parallel, we'll have some presentations of some Brazilians that are already more advanced in their research careers. For later on, play you the tape, have a discussion how we got to the kids to interact with photovoltaics, with energy, and then we'll have a discussion with Andrea, a reflection on the possibilities to make microgrids and all this technology more accessible to ordinary people without any special skills on energy. Then we have sessions on technology. We're going to do that interactively. Let's try to imagine how the near future going to be, the midterm future going to be, and how we can align our research interests to produce more valuable research to the world. On Thursday, we have another session for you to discuss with mentors, the final session for your presentations, and then we have 2 sessions to write a kind of roadmap for our own research, for the network research in the future, to try to stimulate the sponsorship agencies to say, well, if there is a call in this subject, then we have competence in this and that subject. So it's a kind of taking note and putting up a good report on what we conclude on the week. Well, there's another ICR session here. Then we're going to have a dinner party together in Jurerê. It's walk distance to your hotel, but it's not inside a hotel. It's another beach club that has also restaurants. So you're going to have the chance to try American music, because it's not the kind of place that plays Brazilian music, but at least it's in front of the ocean. It's a beautiful place for us to get together. On Friday, we're going to have a representative from British Council to help you understand what are the possibilities, what are the channel, how you apply, how you submit for grants, how can we continue to collaborate. She's coming from São Paulo to help us understand more clearly what are the perspectives. And since we promised to build a network and not only a workshop, we are building up a website, getting some tools, collecting some information, and we'll enrich these along the week. And then we'll have a session here to discuss what else could we put in, how we should keep that active and people engaged with the interaction to each other. A longer lunch here, and then many of you said, well, the transfer is scheduled to very early on Friday and my flight is only 7:30 p.m. Believe me, Florianópolis gets crazy on Fridays. It might happen that you need 3 hours, 4 hours to reach the airport. That's why we schedule that early. But if you want to take the risk that it's going to be a second transfer 1 hour later, you can go on coffee for 1 hour later here and then get a little bit of adrenaline going to the airport. It's up to you. Did I forget something?
No, it's absolutely all covered. I just wanted to make a brief point that after Ricardo's talk, we'll go and try to organize the posters. So we are not actually going to view the posters, but set up the posters at that point. And then the ECR development sessions, aside from your guys' elevator pitches, are going to focus on 3 areas in the main. You may have noticed from the main program. These are the areas that we feel, as a set of mentors here, are most important for your development. That's writing grants, writing papers, so that's the money, that's the prestige and your profile, and then reaching out and working with end-user communities with impact. So, applying for funding, doing the research and writing the paper, and doing so with impact back onto the society. So
Thank you. Ricardo, you want to say something?
No, I'll talk a lot.
Okay. I just had an impression you want to add something. Oh, get used to it. And enjoy Florianópolis for this week. We'll try to get you around, but if you have a chance, Florianópolis is a rather safe city, not comparable to Rio and São Paulo. You should not be afraid of going out, and especially Jurerê. I guess the chance of getting any trouble in Jurerê is basically the same in England or so. But if you want to risk yourself to the lagoon, it's very beautiful. So there are many places on the island, and it's quite safe. Many of you are asking or making thoughts about the Zika virus. As far as I know, we didn't have local transmission yet. It's coming. It will arrive here. But for pregnant people or women, I hope no many yet is pregnant. It's going to happen in the near future, but not yet. It's not as dangerous as dengue, and dengue itself is just a very tough kind of flu. It's not something that kills people, so you shouldn't be afraid. If a mosquito bites you, the chance that you're going to die because of that bite is very, 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 very reduced. Okay? Another thing you need to know about Florianópolis. Buses are not a good idea from this part of the town. It's very schedules are often they are more or less regular, but they are not often. It's better to catch a taxi and go around. And if you have any other issue with your lodging or things, let us know, and we're going to try to solve it. Wi-Fi, the password is there. As you see, we're just building this building, so we have some unexpected even of things that have been fixed on Friday and broke again during the weekend. The network, we have a very nice optical fiber to downtown that's terabits, but it might happen that some machine disturbs it, so be patient. This is something new that is being built, and I guess this was it. Professor Ricardo Rüther, we are very glad to hear you. Tem que tirar os dois juntos aqui? Mas e o cabo de rede? Está amarrado aqui? Oh, okay, one last thing. For us to save time, to spare time changing the notebooks for your presentation, send your presentations to that email address, Lisha@Lisha, and that's the notebook that is there, and we're going to collect all of your presentations to save time.
Okay. This stadium is used mainly in the evenings. So when there is sunshine, we are generating power and feeding to the grid to use in the evening. So again, we use this credit system that we have here in Brazil. First, Brazil is floating PV because we have these huge hydropower plants, so 100 gigawatts of combined power. And the total flooded area of this is about 10 million acres, so it's a lot of land. And you could install 5.7 terawatts on top of that if you would cover all of these lakes. So just for you to have an idea of how much that is, photovoltaics has been around for over 60 years now. And the cumulative power, installed power, is about 0.20 something now terawatts. So if you'd cover all the Brazilian flooded areas, you would reach all that. So there is where you see the potential and also the attractive idea it represents to some government officials that don't really know what they're talking about. Because the main thing is that, you see, PV doesn't float. It goes down. Look, these modules here, if you put them on water, they will not float. So you need these guys here, the floaters. And these floaters are probably much more expensive than the land that you would put a PV installation if you were to put it on land or on a rooftop or wherever. So this is really a stupid idea, but some people are pursuing it. And the reason is that one here, right? Big lobbies, big names are behind this because they want the numbers. But what makes much more sense is installing PV on rooftops. So this is the energy efficient solar house. It's a research project also at that utility Eletrosul next door to our uni. One of our projects, there are a lot of bioclimatic architecture involved here in the design. So this building uses much less energy than a typical building, and it also generates all its energy here. Has also some solar water heating. If you look to a country like Germany, these guys have 1.5 million rooftop installations. The UK has 842,000 rooftop installations. Brazil has 1,500 and counting. Most are very small. Most of them are connected to the low voltage grid. So they're all connected to the grid and generating energy where energy is being used. Equipment like this, air conditioning units, they are becoming more and more popular. Most of them don't drip like this is doing right now, but they are changing our load profile. So this is time of the day, and this is power, and this is the Florianópolis area, the metropolitan area, how it looks like. So the peak, we have one peak at about just before noon. People go to lunch. They sometimes turn the air conditioners off. Sometimes they don't. And if the air conditioners are smart, like Guto is getting hours here to become, they will modulate all that. But then people come back from lunch, and the largest peak is here between 2 and 3 p.m. This used to be the Brazilian peak, but this is now much larger, and it's due to air conditioning. And if you look at the solar distribution, it is pretty much like that. So this air conditioning loads is what we call, they follow the sun. So PV generation has a very good match with that. Now this is from Time magazine, and this is a utility you probably know well because this is a UK utility. And these guys are on a full page ad on Time magazine asking, why would an energy company like you guys, the consumers, to use less energy? So even some innovative utilities are now starting to understand that solar PV on rooftops is not a threat, it is an opportunity. Here in Brazil, we have a an R&D program imposed by the regulator on all the energy utilities, and R&D program, we universities have been attracting a lot of funding to support our research. So we have now projects with utilities that also think like that. So it's not a threat, it's an opportunity. How come? Because these guys already have a contract with all of us. And they also have the possibility to turn the lights off if we don't pay them. So they might be offering services like photovoltaic on. Now, finally, microgrid topic. What is a microgrid? So the textbook definition of a microgrid is a system, an electrical system that includes many loads, air conditioning, even electric cars, and distributed energy resources, and not only. So it's demand management, it is storage. Storage is a huge, it's not yet, it's going to be. And this mini grid can be operated either in parallel with the grid or as an island. So I'll show you examples of both. This building is an example of that. So starting with urban mini grids, right? Imagine a building or a concept building that has many loads, air conditioners, computers, electric vehicles including, has some distributed generation on the rooftop, on carports, on the ground, even on some, this is not done yet, but it's coming. It generates more energy than it consumes annually. So the total installed capacity here is larger than what we need to support, to feed this building. So we have to control and manage the demand, and this is what Rüther will tell you more about later this week. So this building, so far it is only beautiful, but a bit stupid. And it's going to become smarter and smarter as Rüther develops more and more of his strategies here. It will have energy storage, so lithium-ion batteries are coming. We have just bought them. They are going to arrive in the next few weeks. And it can operate in parallel with the grid, or it can also disconnect from the grid and operate as an island. And voila, this is what we've got. This is the building where we are. This is our lab. It's a living lab. We also do a lot of building integration, and some of the colleagues that you will relate to this week here have done their PhDs here. They are architects, and they are dealing with the integration, what we call building integration of photovoltaics. So if you look this curved surface here, it is made of flat panels like this. Right? Flat, rigid, not curved. But when you look from the distance, this roof looks curved. And you can use your imagination in building integration and adopt as many of these panels as you want. You also have to understand some limitations in terms of orientation and tilt. So if you go to the very high latitudes where you're coming from, you can imagine a vertical wall with PV on it, and you will waste some of the energy, but not much. But if you do that on a lower latitude like we are here, then you start having to compromise. This is part of one of your colleagues here's thesis, where she determined if you are in this area of azimuth deviation and tilt, you can pretty much be free here in tilt and orientation of your building, your facade, your rooftop. If you look at PV technologies, this is a graph that spans from the early 70s to today. And here you see different colors, meaning different iterations of PV technology. And there is currently over 1,000 different PV technologies at different stages of R&D, commercialization, pilot line, and many of them will make it. Most of them will not make it because of cost. So many of these installations, I'll come back to that in a minute, but these different technologies have different behavior in terms of spectral distribution of sunlight, temperature coefficient, temperature effects. If they're building integrated, they will warm up more. So you have to take all that into account in the design a PV system. And this is what we've done here. So in this building, you have, we're still missing the brise solaire that will come here, but you have 1, 2, 3, and then will be a fourth here, different PV technology to study all that. So costs have come down a lot. This is the learning photovoltaics. So this is a log curve, and it shows as you learn how to do it, that's why it's called a learning curve. So as you do more, you learn how to do it, you make it cheaper. And that has translated, so here the red is the cost of the module only, and the blue is the balance of the system. So we came down from 5,000 euros per kilowatt in the early 2006. So, and less than 10 years later, we are down now to below 1,000 euros. So in Germany, for example. And the module used to cost about 69, 70%. Now it's less than half of the cost of the whole PV system cost. Now imagine something else. We have now a problem with this building. We are far away from the main campus. Now imagine an air-conditioned electric bus which is charged with the surplus solar electricity that we generate here, and that bridges our main campus to this Sapiens Park, is this park here, with high-speed Wi-Fi connection in a working environment, so that the time that we every day take to come here is not commuting time, is working time. So this is the concept. This is our main campus. So so Florianópolis is only half of Florianópolis shown here. When you landed here, you were at the very south of the island. So to come to the lab every day, so classes are still here. So we're lecturing on the main campus. Students have to go there, lecturers have to go there, and the research lab is here. We're not allowed to teach undergrad here, only post. So many of us are quite often twice a day, sometimes even more. So the bus will drive this distance, so a 30 minutes drive from our main campus to this building here, and it will be a working environment. So around this, we abandoned this concept here. We're doing actually a socket, going to plug it to recharge with the excess electricity from the building. And when it goes to the main campus, it will stop here in front of the main theater on our main campus, where we also have some solar installations. So idea is to have, again, here a charging station, and whenever the bus is stopped, it is charging. So this is the bus that is being built. We expect this bus to be up and running in the second semester this year. The bus has an environment where we have two meeting tables. It's 37 seats here, only seated passengers, because it is going to be a working environment. It doesn't stop, it's A to B commute. We've been more recently doing more and more research into electric vehicles, how they interact with the grid to assist the grid. So this topic, vehicle to grid, in which you plug your vehicle to the grid, but to assist the grid, not to recharge the vehicle, depending on the time, depending on how the tariffs, is something that is becoming more and more a topic of research in our group. held solar conference in Florianópolis in our university theater in 2008, and we had this electric vehicle there to demonstrate the concept of electric vehicle demands can be supplied with photovoltaics. So, like this, which is typically the second car in a family family here in Brazil, will drive not more than 1,000 kilometers per month, right? And at the current energy usage of this kind of vehicle, you would need 20 square meters of PV to feed that or to supply that new energy demand. Typically the carport where the car is resting. Now, if you imagine this car is sitting 90% of the time, it's driving only 10% of a regular day. This car can be charging or discharging itself depending on how the grid needs it. And this is a concept that is also a part of our research interests. You might have heard that Brazil is very its ethanol or biofuels program, right? We grow sugarcane ethanol. It's the most efficient first generation bioethanol production technology. If you compare to corn, for example, sugarcane, you put 1 and you take 7. With corn, right? So it's a big investment in energy. But even sugarcane, we see it as a transition technology. So this ethanol or flex fuel cars, here I'll give you an example just to demonstrate that, just to give you an idea of how huge or how much better solar is than photosynthesis. So this is a compact car, 1 hectare, okay, 1 hectare of sugarcane. Over 1 year it will yield enough ethanol for this car to drive 1 point something times around the world. Okay, it's massive, 54,000 kilometers for 1 hectare of land. Now I'll take the same car, but an electric car, and cover the same hectare with solar photovoltaics, the same 100 by 100 meters. The electric vehicle driving on solar electricity will drive a bit more. But it's not just a bit more. It's a lot more, much more. So much more. Here are the assumptions, and the number is right. I've done these calculations a few times just to make sure I was not screwing up here. And why is that? There's 2 main reasons. Photovoltaics is 2 orders of magnitude more efficient than photosynthesis. And electric motors are many times more efficient than an internal combustion engine. And this is the reason where you get this factor here. And this is why we see biofuels, bioethanol, as a transition technology. I also want to touch in one research we do here. The electricity uses typically 1 hour or maximum 15 minutes time resolution when they gather data. In solar energy, if you do that, if you use that bad time resolution, you lose a lot of information. So what I'm going to show you here, a sequence of graphs showing this is solar intensity and time. And here we are measuring the solar irradiation at this test site where we have some PV at 1 second time resolution. So we see these spikes here, and solar noon is about 1,000 watts per square meter. And we're measuring here, in this case, close to 1,600. And if we start decreasing the time resolution. Look, this is 1 second. Now I go to 10 seconds. Okay, and keep looking at this bit here. 10 seconds, and then 1 minute, and 5 minutes, 15 minutes. Sometimes the utility takes this time resolution, or 1 hour, which is much less costly in terms of resources. So here, 1 hour, we lost completely the information we wanted to have. If we do that, we are really just wasting some precious information. What I want to come to now. Yep. So the world record of solar irradiance is 1832, 10 more watts per square meter, and this is measured in Ecuador, in the Andes, where you'll never have a PV installation because there's nothing there. So this is a site where we will have large solar power plants in Brazil. So we need to have that information. This is another site where we're seeing these events. You see, again, 1,000 is what you have typically. So here we have this cloud edge and cloud enhancement effects that are very long. And this is bringing us some problems because fuses are blowing in PV installations because they are not rated for 1.6 times the nominal capacity for that long. So this is things that you only see if you measure with a high enough time resolution. And to do that, so the comparison of 1 second to 1 hour is 3.6 thousand times. So you need 3.6 thousand times more data capability. And this is only solar radiation. We measure a lot of other electrical parameters, so it's a lot of data to handle. Now finally going to isolated grids. The thing I talked so far was for urban and grid connected mini grids. Now we have a project in the Amazon, and the same Ministry of Science and Technology that gave us the to build this lab, and this lab was built to do a lot of outreach. They also gave us a grant to build the bus that is under construction that I mentioned, and also this project. This is the motivation, the light our grants from this ministry is the social outreach. So taking technology to the communities that don't have access to it. So imagine now an electric drive boat which is charged with solar electricity. Some of it is embedded onto the boat's roof, operating in an isolated riverside community in the Amazon. And this bus or this boat is used as a school bus to take the children to school, and also used to deliver their produce to the market. And then we also built a solar-powered workshop with some electric tools, some solar-powered ice-making machines for adding value to this community's produce. This is the solar boat. So this boat was built in Rio and then sent to this community. This river is 1.5 kilometers wide. I'll show you the map in a minute. It's in the Amazon, in the state of Pará, in Belém do Pará. The capital city, Belém, is a typical capital city. What's the population in Belém, Wilson? 1.5 million, 2 million people, and have they access to all the amenities of a capital city in Brazil. There you see the background. Across this river, so 1.5 kilometers away, there is a number of riverside communities that don't have access to electricity, just because it is too expensive to the grid to such a so they will never have the firm electricity that people enjoy in the city. So this boat was designed to assist this community. Oops. So this, before the start of the project, we did some research on the communities to select the community. This is the University Federal of Pará, and you have Wilson professor here. He is part of the team that is involved in this project. And this is the community, where they have here a health center, school, and now here they have this, the boat is moored here, so it has some PV on its rooftop, and it also can charge from the workshop, where we have the ice making machines, sewing machines, and tools, so that this community can add value to their production and then sell or use the boat to take across the river to sell in the mainland. Now this is my final slide, and it is sign you see if you go out these doors here. Cooperation and partnership. This is how I want to conclude my presentation to you guys here. So we're here together today, this week, to start cooperating. Right? We have young professionals here that have completed their PhD in the last 10 years, right? And the idea is to share with you some of our experiences, learn from you what are your intentions, and then in the end eventually come together with some cooperation projects for new calls. And energy, microgrids, and how they all interact is a big topic, okay? This building and these facilities here were built because we got an initial grant from these guys here, Ministry of Science, Technology, and Innovation. All these other guys here are the Research Council, companies, utility companies, suppliers, service providers, research university. And each and every one of these logos are necessary. So we cannot do without them, because this grant here was not enough to put this kind of facility up. And many of these companies are part of the developments of what we're doing here. And many more companies have to come, so really do right manner. So with that, I close my presentation here, and I'm open for questions at any time and during the week. And I thank you all for your, thank you. Yes, there are questions. We have first there, and then I'll come back here.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Rüther, for very fascinating presentations. So I'm sorry because I'm outsider. I'm more in education and management. I'm not in technologies. But your story is so inspiring. I've got opportunity to be into a number of developing countries, and I realized that you can tell the world this story and help the community, because that's what, you know, I've been moved with what you've been doing here. And I'm thinking that we have something to work together in the future, because you need to tell these stories to other tropic countries, developing like the Philippines, Vietnam, Thailand, you know. I've been to those areas, and I know that we use up all the traditional resources like coal, oil, and gas, and this is the future energies. And thank you so much. So I hope that during this workshop we work together. We find out the way that we need to tell this story more. Thank you.
Thank you.
my question really has been about insular microgrids, and what do you think, considering that the technology is advancing, the computer science community is developing better and more effective ways of managing the loads and managing the supply and so on and so forth, and forecasting. But what do you think would be the primary roadblocks for the community to take their faith in their hands and action on the available energy by balancing loads themselves rather than having them done in an automated fashion by energy companies or whoever is managing that supply?
Okay, we have a local here. So one of our guests here is Wilson Negrão. He is part of that group who is doing the everyday contact with these communities. But what I can tell you is that these communities, they don't have a clue of what energy management is because they have never had energy to manage. So we are bringing them their first direct contact with energy in many cases. Particular community, they have been using a diesel genset for a long time, but that limits their energy availability to only when the diesel genset is on, and this is limited by the availability of the fuel. So now we have energy available 24/7, and even the communities that have been using energy, they now need to learn how to use energy 24/7 and how to conserve energy. And also we have sometimes limitations here in terms of power electronics. The inverter that supplies energy cannot take whatever load you want to impose on it. So all that is so new for them, and also for us. We don't even know what they would like to do. So this is a learning experience for all of us.
It's an opportunity too.
Definitely, yeah.
Behaviors are going to change, but if
Sure.
you can manipulate them at this stage to change in the right direction, I think it's a great opportunity.
Yeah,
You
it's
don't have to unlearn behavior.
no.
24/7 use of energy. We just need to provide the right recipes with the right tools and methods, and I think that's what
Be-
we are here to.
Yeah, because
share in terms of knowledge and research between Brazil and the UK, considering that we have a different regulation, we have a different light, different technical approach to develop the panels. In terms of electric cars, that's something I'm curious, because actually I'm from here and I live there and I see this difference. And I was wondering, how we can actually share this knowledge, and how can, I don't know if you thought about that.
yeah, there is a lot that we can share, starting from basic science in photovoltaic materials, right? Currently, if I go back enough, I want to make a point here. So, first generation photovoltaics, space cells, second generation, and here you have first generation and all space cell, second generation, third generation photovoltaics. Look at the names here: dye, sensitized, organic, blah blah blah, perovskite. This is Uni Oxford, world record for many years now. So photovoltaics, the development of photovoltaics has a lot to do with the UK. The films, these guys here, Silicon, University of Dundee, many years ago. So there's a lot of basic science being done in the UK that we can also relate to or cooperate. And more recently, storage. I was last week in the UK visiting 5-6 universities that are working on energy storage. Lithium-ion batteries is just one of the technologies, but many others as well. And storage here in Brazil, the mission, it was sponsored by the UK Embassy. We were 20 people. Most of them were from the regulator, because the regulator is going to come with a call, an R&D call on storage, a strategic call on storage. And they took us to have a look at what the UK is doing in that aspect. So this is just to name 2 topics. There is a lot going on, and people starting to plan more on that. Everybody happy? Excellent. So I think we move on. Thank you again for your attention and time. To Guto.
It's a 20-year-old project, and it is installed. There is a monitoring station here in front. This is live data coming from the consumption of the air conditioning, the bulbs. You can even control what is going on there. And if you have good ideas on which roles should be implemented, please tell my students, because they say, well, it's so silly to implement these roles. We already did all the technology. So the building is still behaving like a non-intelligent one, but it's equipped with monitoring and controlling facilities for every single load. All outlets on these rooms, all bulbs, all air conditioning equipment, everything is connected into a mesh network that can be seen, visualized, and controlled by this computer here in front. I guess we can advance to the coffee. If it's not ready, we'll have some minutes to adjust the posters and right here in front.